All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. If people come late, that's fine, but please feel free to share your video and unmute. Because it's a smaller group, we're going to be able to be a little bit more interactive. My name is Jill Burgos, and you are here for the session about how do I get the word out about my support group. I'd like to introduce Nick. Nick is going to do a self-introduction. He is my Zoom jockey tonight, and he's a great person to know. He's a peer support specialist, trainee apprentice. Kind of, I got it right. I'll let you self-introduce, Nick. Go right ahead and tell the folks who you are and what you're doing for DBSA, please.
Hi guys, my name is Nick and I'm your Zoom jockey for the session. I'm a peer support apprentice with DBSA. Currently, I am a veteran and I'm just working with DBSA to become a leader in the community among peer support professionals. And I love my time here. And then welcome to this year's Leadership Summit. We're glad that you're here. We're excited to have you join us for the session today. During the session, you're welcome to put your questions into the Q&A box, or it's just the chat here, and your presenters, who is Jill, will answer them by the end of the presentation, time permitting. At the conclusion of our session and during downtime between any Leadership Summit sessions, you're invited to visit our Leadership Summit Lounge, where you can relax by taking part in meditative exercises or learn more about DBSA resources, including our wellness toolbox, support groups, parents and caregivers, community advocacy work, peer specialist program, and other toolkits. So welcome, and we wish you a productive and enjoyable Leadership Summit experience.
Thank you, Nick. And you know what? I am going to change the rules a little itty bit. And that is that if you guys have a question while I am presenting, then please feel free to raise your hand or speak out, because like I said, we're a small group, we're intimate, so we don't have to be as formal and have the Q&A, because it's not 150 people trying to ask a question at the same time. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start this presentation, rocking and rolling here. And I'm sure that if we happen to get out early, that none of you are going to report it to my boss, even though this is being recorded. You're going to be happy to get through a session and see how much fun we can have. So again, this session is how do I get the word out about my support group, publicizing your support group. My name is Jill Burgos. I am your chapter relations manager. I've worked with many of you, spoken with, emailed, etc. I'm glad to be here. Part of the reason for this presentation, and before I start advancing, I like to tell little stories because they help elucidate and illuminate the reasons why we do some of the things that we do. Part of my role at DBSA is when folks come to visit our website and they are interested in starting a chapter and they click that little button, I'm actually the person that responds to them, either the next day or the next hour, whenever I get the bump from the website. And so frequently now, or not frequently, we have changed our introductory letter and explained the differences between starting a chapter and starting a support group. Okay. And starting a support group is very much easier than starting a chapter. And so we send a series when people say, we first send the information about starting a chapter, and people say, oh no, Jill, I don't want to start a chapter. I don't want to, separately incorporate, get an EIN number, have to have an educational meeting, have an outreach activity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to start a support group. Okay. So Jill sends them the support group start information. And it's really only a series of about 8 questions that as people go and work their way through the questions, they're setting up their support group. What's the interval? What's the day of the week? What audience are they serving? What's going to be the name of their group if they have a facilitator? And then I ask the question, how are you going to market your group? And if it was a classroom, it'd be a dead silence, pin dropping moment. Yeah. Now, sometimes people say, and we're going to talk about this in the presentation. One time I worked with a gentleman here in Illinois, and I'm just going to call him Tim, just to protect the innocent. It's just like when you watch those shows that say they change the names, same thing. Anyways, Tim went through the process. He was an older gentleman. That doesn't make a difference whether you're older, younger, etc., because we all have it in us to start something. But Tim went through it and he said, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to put some notices at my doctor's office. Okay. He goes, and I'm going to put a note here at the hospital where we're meeting. And I said, oh, okay. Did you think about any other ways that you want to market? He, no, that'll be fine. Okay. His first support group meeting came. It was a Wednesday evening at 5 p.m. No bad weather. It wasn't, I think it was even at the time when it wasn't even dark yet at 5 p.m. here in Illinois. And he had his meeting. He called me the next day and he said, Jill, no one showed up. Wow. That broke my heart. Can you imagine that he started all of that and not one person ever showed up? Has that happened to anybody before here? You guys can just popcorn it and tell me yes, no, or maybe. Or have the fear that no one's going to show up to your meeting? Yeah, some head nods. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about a little bit about what happened with COVID. And I'm going to teach you some tricks of the trade. But you know what this little story elucidated to me as your chapter relations manager? You guys are volunteers. You're willing to help in our cause. You didn't come here with an MBA necessarily or a marketing degree. So I want to teach you a few ways how you're going to be able to get your word out about your group in hopefully the cheapest, easiest manner. Because again, we know you're volunteers. Let's get started with the presentation. Our learning objectives today. At the end of the session, you guys will be able to, I'm going to put my glasses on because I have my small little laptop here. Name 3 non-traditional meeting places where support groups can meet. Explain at least 3 sessions a support group should maintain, or I'm sorry, explain 3 different reasons a support group should why a support group should maintain a hybrid presence. And then describe at least 2 new ways to publicize new and current support groups. Before the pandemic, where were your support groups meeting? Churches, church basements, doctor's offices? You guys are so quiet. You guys can talk. It's so small. It's okay to talk.
Hospital.
Yeah,
Churches.
churches, the church basements, churches,
Mhm.
doctor's offices, recovery
Food
centers.
bank.
Excuse me?
The food bank.
The food bank. Okay. All right. Those are all pretty good places to be meeting at.
And the
we've been-
library.
Library. Yeah. And we were meeting, we were plugging right along, you know, thinking about how we can expand the attendance and all of that, right? Everything was going pretty well. Let's see, it was like my first year at DBSA. I had just finished helping to train 130 support group facilitators in person. Phew. And then, bam. What happened, guys? I have a little word cloud hint there for you. What happened? What stands out for you?
Mm,
The obvious, right? The pandemic, COVID, right? It was all over the country. It was a virus you couldn't see, you can't taste, you can only feel after it's already too late, right? Pretty scary stuff. And then, so what happened for our support groups? Stop. What happened and what continues to happen? There's the debate. No mask, wear a mask, be vaccinated, don't be vaccinated. I don't want anyone sticking anything in my arm. You know, this is not about what we want to talk about tonight. It's not what our session's about. Carla's having a session about that on Friday, in case you'd like to talk about that, about starting. But you want to come a little closer in group? Oh, wait a minute. Stay back. And wait a minute. You want me to come out of my home office? You want me to come on the street? You want me to go into a basement? Is it well ventilated? Would your facility even let you all in? Did they slam those doors shut? If, for heaven forbid, you met in person and someone contracted COVID, does your chapter have liability insurance? kind of hurtful and stopful for your support group meetings, isn't it? So necessity became the mother of all inventions, and so too our support groups started being inventive. I don't like to use the word pivot. It's kind of been overused. So what happened with our support groups? Because albeit we all knew we needed to meet and we couldn't meet in person, so support groups started meeting online. They started meeting in parks. They started meeting in church gardens if the weather is permittable. You know, in January here in Chicago, it's sub-zero, so I don't think we'll be meeting in any church gardens, maybe an ice rink. But community centers, restaurants, but you know, restaurants, we're going to talk about that. And this one was pretty cool. I don't know if any of you have done this, but they did walking meetings where one chapter had their support group meet. And so people would walk in small groups of 2 or 3, and they met like at a park where they could just walk together as a mini group and talk to each other. I thought that was pretty neat. So you get some steps in and, you know, a little health and a little buzz from walking around and have your support group meeting. But the challenges to consider with any of these different types of meetings are the degree of anonymity. You know, we do not guarantee that you're always anonymous going to a meeting. We try to not call attention unless you want to call attention to yourself, and that's for the cause, and that's talking about advocacy. But again, this session's not about that. But we also, with any of these meetings, the one thing we do have to ensure is confidentiality. And so when you're meeting at a restaurant, if you only have the restaurant to yourselves and the wait staff can stay at a distance and not over here, then you can guarantee confidentiality. And so the safety question also comes into play. And more, we're also talking about liability. Do any of you know if your chapters have liability insurance protecting you as a support group facilitator or at a meeting?
No, that's something I was planning to learn.
Okay. Hey, lay it out there. Now's the time to ask. Just remember, you just have me, and I'm the person that you're probably calling and asking about. Liability insurance is something that each chapter has to take on its own. We did explore that idea, and we tried to see if we could buy in bulk, that we could have a liability insurance program for every single one of our chapters. But the cost would essentially suck up most of our budget for the whole entire year for the whole organization. So we couldn't guarantee that. But what you can do, and you'll have to be a little crafty and really vet things and double check things, is Google nonprofit organization liability insurance, but put the NPO in there. Okay, because it's a different, you know, you can go with the big insurance companies, but the big insurance companies are big money. So that's something that you can do if you want to make a note about it. So you're going to Google nonprofit organization liability insurance. Everyone has that? Okay. I'm going to talk to you about some new meeting locations that I learned. And some of them, like you said, I heard someone said the library, so that's nothing new. But these are some things that before the pandemic, these were some ideas that started bubbling up. I was actually contacted by CVS before the pandemic struck. CVS is actually doing a community outreach program where they want to have each one of their facilities not only offer prescription medication and then, you know, the usual dime store stuff or dollar store stuff, rather, or makeup and all of that, but they wanted to start having community groups actually meet in their facilities for free. Okay, you believe it or not, all of the Walgreens and the CVS pharmacies have a little lunchroom or have a small community room. And what CVS wanted to do was to engage with nonprofit businesses, because that would, they'd offer a space to people to come to meet. and that was free, but also when people would come into the store, maybe they'd buy something here or there. So it's kind of true, altruistic, but still use them for the free space and, the safe space. Walgreens too. They may welcome your group in their break rooms as well. The big box stores that are located near you have meeting rooms and training rooms. These big box stores like Walmart, Sam's Club, not CVS, what's the other big one?
You talking about Costco?
Yeah, Costco. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we have one here. I'm thinking it's at the mall. They have big rooms, and those big box stores have a degree of flexibility on what they're doing to help people out in their communities. So that is something that they can check the box on. Don't be afraid to ask. Other groups are using Zoom to create electronic drop-in rooms. I know, Diane, you're here from West Virginia. West Virginia and Tennessee state organizations. I think West Virginia still does it. I know Tennessee still does it. And what they do is they open up a Zoom room for a certain amount of hours, and people take turns just staying in the Zoom room. And so people can go in if they need to talk with someone or see someone face to face, just to, talk over an issue they're currently experiencing. And so it becomes an electronic drop-in room. Anyone else try something like that on Zoom?
We have Zoom meetings. We have our Zoom meeting
Mhm.
at the same time we have our in-person meetings.
Okay,
So
great.
we get about six people on a Zoom meeting, along with about 6 or 10 people inside. So
Oh,
it works out pretty well that way.
and then we'll talk more about that electronic, electronic extension of our meetings. Again, you can ask for local community centers. They have big rooms. Again, community outreach. You guys are representative of a community organization that is helping members of that said community. The library, believe it or not, police and fire departments, you can ask. And if you go to a police department, that might be slightly triggering. So you have to make sure that people that you invite understand that that's where you are meeting at. But what it also helps police officers to understand is you never know when they might come to a meeting because they are a person that needs some support. Medical buildings. This is very old fashioned, but some of our chapters, because there are varying degrees of comfort with electronic media, some chapters recognized that some of their older members were not going to have a laptop or a computer. They don't have internet, and they were losing them. So what these chapters did was had phone trees. And so they would do phone outreach, and they would have officers or facilitators call a certain amount of people one day per week. On Mondays, Susie would do it. On Tuesdays, Ben would do it. On Wednesdays, Lisa would make calls. That is another way to do some outreach. And, for folks that don't have access to the internet. Also, and this is another one, is on the internet. You can put in Google and smush it all together. freeconferencecall.com. You can have a conference call meeting. Now, freeconferencecall.com, it doesn't have the best quality, but again, if people have to just pick up the phone, it's another alternative. One of our chapters here in Illinois is starting a partner project. And so what they are doing is people who feel that they are far along in their wellness plans are becoming kind of like the buddy person. And so people who are looking to develop their wellness plan or just have someone that they can contact, they exchange information and they work, just the two of them together. This is another aspect of where you can be developing your services. No matter what facility you're looking at, it never hurts to ask. Do you happen to have a room that's available on such a, make sure you have your date prepared on Sundays at this time for this approximately this amount of people? Okay. It never hurts to ask. What's the worst that they can say? No. And you move on.
Sorry, say that again?
I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? They say no, and you move on to the next place that, to next targeted place that you can potentially meet at. Never hurts to ask. Have you guys been going back and forth on in-person versus online meetings? Are you listening to peers that they say they can't wait to be back in person? Why can't we start having meetings now? Let's face it. Are there some of you out there that can't wait to cut off Zoom or disconnect it? Oh, I hear little laughs. Okay.
Yeah, well, I know as somebody who wants to begin, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, all right. As somebody who wants to begin a chapter, I know I really want to, well, support group either way. I want to have that in-person contact to begin
Mhm.
with.
Mhm.
Because I know we're more likely to get involvement if they know, you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
there's the in-person contact, I think we're gonna see a lot of response.
Yes. Yes.
Can I
Uh-huh.
say something, Joe?
Please do.
Right. I'm Nick. I'm in Yuma, Arizona. And we probably have, I don't know, 16, 20 people local.
Mhm.
I have 70 people in our group total. All the rest of them are Zoom attendees from across the nation
Yes.
that have looked and checked me out. And I would love to get rid of Zoom because, in person is always much nicer, but we have a good group of people that are online that really participate well. They don't all show up every Thursday, thank goodness, because we'd be having meetings 5 days a week, maybe 6
Yeah.
times a week. But when they do, they participate well. That's what we look for.
Definitely. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, hybrid events are here to stay.
Yeah.
You're getting, like, just like Nick was saying, you're getting more attendees from across the nation. You know what? And depending where you live, if you have weather challenges, it allows people to pick up a meeting and not have to worry about, sliding off the road, driving off a mountain pass in the rainstorm, sparking a fire somewhere if you're out west. And I'm not being facetious or joking.
Yeah.
Zoom and those types of meetings, it's cost cutting, it's time saving.
It also, we have a lot of people in Phoenix and Mesa that they're
Mhm.
2 hours from us.
Yeah,
So,
to take a meeting, that would be
and we
ridiculous.
have the heat. So we
Yes.
dropped down into the 90s yesterday. So
Ugh. Yeah, we're headed into fall here, so it's going okay. I like fall. Fall is good. So, but anyways, going on, but drum roll, please. Hybrid events. You can also monetize. What? Yes. You know what, you guys? I know that DBSA headquarters is sponsoring, if your chapter wanted to maintain a Zoom presence for the next year. We paid for that account on an annual basis because we want to encourage it. I know that for many months you would contact me and say, hey, Jill, we want to go online. And I'd say, no, I'm sorry, but you can't do that because SGC hosts DBSA's online support groups and we don't compete with the national online support groups. Then COVID happened and we said, knock, knock, knock. Hey, chapters, by the way, now we need you to get on Zoom. Well, you know what? That Christmas present has been unwrapped. We can't wrap it up with some tape and call it new and put it back under the tree. So we cannot make you guys go back to just doing in-person meetings if the chapter and support groups choose. So with that being said, we are paying for your Zoom account, but you can contact companies in your area and explain who you are and that, you know, you would love for them to be a sponsor of your chapter's support groups. Okay, they could make a short commercial at the beginning or the end and, you know, record it, and you can play it for them during your support group meetings at the beginning or end. They could have virtual booths that people could visit. And or companies could give you a QR code. Do you guys know what that is? I don't want to be talking techie stuff.
Yeah,
Those are those little squares that you can scan with your phone for a coupon. And that could be the trade-off. You know, that if the local bakery wants to help you guys, maybe they provide refreshments for you. Well, if it's online, they can't provide refreshments, but you know, they give you guys some money towards your Zoom account for maybe the year that we can't help you guys, or help the chapters help pay for the Zoom accounts. So that's some ways that you can do it. Or if you're doing in person and having online, that's another way. Any questions about that?
well, I have to admit, I'm nervous about that.
Okay.
I'm not, you know, it's weird because I've been in public speaking, you know, background. But when it comes to doing the ask for stuff like this, I'm going to have a little bit of nerves when I try to do that.
Sure.
So what advice do you offer for that?
Sure. You know, you'd go in there, you introduce us. Hi, my name is Jill Burgos, and I'm I'm a volunteer leader. I'm a chapter president. I'm a state org leader, whatever the case may be. I'm a facilitator with the Greater Chicago chapter. And, you know, we're a 501c3 organization, and you could bring your paperwork in with you, you know, a copy of it so that they can see. And I would also recommend bringing in a brochure, a DBSA official brochure with you, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but
Okay.
and say, and I'm looking for financial support for our group to continue its good works in our area. Would you consider, you know, blah, 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 and, you know, this is tax deductible, and we could issue an official receipt, etc. And if they say no, okay. The other way you can do it to get over the nerves of it is you could also send letters. And there are information about that on our website under the resources for chapters. There's solicitation letters that you can use for that purpose.
Okay.
And so
That's good.
you send the letter, then you do the phone call afterwards. That's another way. And so then you're not as nervous, because if you're doing it via letter and they throw it in the circular file, so be it. And then you call them and they hang up on you, you're like, yeah, okay. No, but you know, but there might be someone that says yes. And so you might as well take advantage of that, because there are organizations out there all the time that need to do good works. And if you're the organization that's out there with their hand out, you might be the one to get it.
Okay.
And
That's good.
we can talk it over too later too. So
Okay.
anyways, again, I'm going to tell you, let's see, I'm going to check our time here. We're okay. We're doing all right here, because we're the last session of the day. We don't have to get off as exactly early, but I want to tell you another little story to help another little point that we're going to talk about. If you build it, will they come? I told you about the traumatic start to the support group meeting for that one organization in Illinois. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my life a little bit. Short story. I am a working mom, not a single working mom, a working mom. And my husband and I have 2 daughters who are grown women now. So you know that the story is going to have a happy ending of some sort. But, you know, being a working mom, I wasn't there to pick up my kids. Okay. They went to a small Catholic grammar school, you know, just a half a block from our house. You know, I figured that would be easiest since it was so close. And anyway, so I wasn't out there every day picking them up. I wasn't a Girl Scout leader. I wasn't a cookie mom. I wasn't a helper at school. And, you know, busy. And all the stay-home moms, and please know that I am not bashing stay-home moms by any
Right.
means. They've got hard work ahead of them. But you know what? The stay home moms at our local school had, at our church had, it was called Moms Plus. Moms Plus was a group of very connected stay-home moms that got together to do fundraising, that got together to do the kids' parties and things like that. It was like a physical LinkedIn for stay-home moms. And I'll tell you guys, I wasn't part of it. All right. Anyways, fast forward. Some of my other fellow working moms who always looked at each other like, working mom, and we're like, that's that the shame head nod. And one of them was telling me, did you hear Betty had a birthday party for her daughter, who's another working mom? You know how many kids showed up? 3 to the kids' birthday party. Wow. And it came time for my daughter's birthday parties. And I thought, okay, I have to make it a big circus, big event, right? But God, I hope it doesn't be like poor Betty's setup where she had a really great party and only 3 kids came. So one year for one of my daughters, I was having a gymnastics party. Okay, I rented out a gymnastics facility and they had instructors that would help the kids do little somersaults, handstands. These were little kids, mind you, not teenagers where they could break something. Little kids are so much more flexible. But tumbling, mosh pit, et cetera, et cetera. And then followed with the pizza party. And I thought, wow, I hope they come. So what did I have to start doing to ensure that people were going to come to my kid's birthday party? I started going in extra early to my work so that I could leave early to start being there to physically pick up my kids and start talking to moms about, oh yeah, well, I'm having a birthday party for Lydia at the gymnastic facility up in Wheeling, and it's going to be followed by a pizza party. So I started talking little by little, and they started to get to know me. And I said, it's going to be a couple hours because it's going to be an hour or so of gymnastics. And then it's going to be followed by hand washing and then pizza party and cake and some games just to end the party off on the right foot. So I did this. And I said, you could go for a mani-pedi as I talked to my fellow stay-home moms, or just have some time to yourself. So we'll talk about what happened at the end of my presentation. When people want to start a support group, as I was telling you at the beginning of this presentation, they are asked, how are you going to market your group? And so, you know what people told me? Word of mouth at my doctor's office, through the DBSA website, at the facility where meetings are going to be held. Okay. Word of mouth. Let me ask you, how does that work, you guys? How does word of mouth work? Are you going to go around asking people, hey, by the way, did you need to attend a DBSA support group meeting for depression or bipolar disorder? Is it a whisper campaign? Like, those cans that you whisper and hope they...
I hated that game. I'm deaf.
Okay. All right. We hated that game. Okay. At my doctor's office, are you going to stay and camp out at your doctor's office? How does that work? How does that work?
Okay. I think somebody was going to speak first. Okay. Well, I know that word of mouth for in my past has been like, okay, well, I have a successful meeting with 3 people, and then they say, oh, hey, you know what? I had a good time. I understand that, you're living with a child who has bipolar disorder. They're depressed and they need a little bit of help. Did you know that there's a support group that helps with that? And that's and I think that's part of
Word
key
of mouth.
component of
Yeah, definitely. And please know, I'm not bashing or making fun of any of these methods. It's just very difficult. And, now in the quote unquote modern age, we're going to say, oh, but I'm going to advertise online. Okay. All right. So look at this list, you guys. Facebook, WhatsApp, QQ, WeChat, QZone, Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter. You guys have all accounts on all these social media apps?
No, I've only got 3 of them.
Okay. I only have 3 of them. All right. Okay. But we can look at Facebook, WhatsApp, and we could probably say Twitter. They are like the most popular social media platforms that are out there. Facebook is, of course, the most popular. Facebook has a segmented population. Facebook originally was an app to meet the person of your dreams, and it's become just basic social media. But I dare say, have any of you ever put in the Facebook search for a support group meeting, for a depression support group meeting, and hit enter and see what comes up?
No, I never thought of that. That's amazing.
But I bet you when you do, your support group might not necessarily come up at all. Or if it comes up, it's number 200, and that's on the bottom page that people would have to scroll on and never see it again. It's very tricky. Did you, any of you realize that there are companies out there that help organizations become number one when you put that information in there? And
Not
companies
surprised.
pay for that? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If money
It
can be
does.
made.
If money can be made, it's gonna be made, especially on the internet. So with all that being said, we're gonna talk about some new ways that you guys can market your support group. We want to be mindful of time. We're gonna shake things up a little bit. These are some old school, new school, a little manipulation, a little Machiavellian control. So we're going to talk about this. I want you to consider and think about this. You can give the drug reps, it's late. Give the drug rep a bit of competition. Have you ever been in your doctor's office and seen a drug rep come in and they chit chat with the receptionist and they're applying them with little like candy boxes of candy as they're trying to wait to be able to cut in line in front of you as you're waiting to see your psychiatrist, your doctor? And you're like, oh, for God's sake, please don't make them see my doctor and make my appointment even later. So what you're going to do when you go into a doctor's office or your physician's office, maybe consider making yourself a flyer with your meeting information on it, the day, make it a meeting flyer on a piece of paper, a cheap thing. Buy yourself a box of Rice Krispie treats. Okay, those come individually wrapped. When you go into the receptionist's office and say, hi, I'm a patient of Dr. So-and-so, and I'm also a member of the DBSA support group for depression and bipolar disorder. Would you mind if I put my flyers out on the table here in the lobby area? And maybe you have to show your ID or maybe show a brochure, just to make yourself a little more official, and then give the receptionist a nice little Rice Krispie treat. That helps grease the wheels. If you need brochures, contact your chapter leadership and ask them for a designated amount of, I would recommend the DBSA support groups brochure. And on the inside, staple your meeting information to that brochure, so that as people are, looking at the brochure, they see, oh, wait a minute, this is part of a support group meeting. Have any of you tried something like that before? These are kind of old school, but when it's a bird in hand, might get a person in one of your seats.
We make brochures, and we've been handing them out to the counselors, the
Mhm.
psychiatrists,
Mhm.
MDs,
Yes.
just about any place we can think of. And
Since 2005.
since 2005, when Miriam, who's sitting
Uh-huh.
next to me,
Okay.
opened up the group.
Excellent. Did you also put in the information about your guys' support groups in there though too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
it's-
Excellent.
The vision statement, the mission statement, that we're not a
Awesome.
12-step program.
Excellent. But that helps get people into your meetings, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Also, in your local community, see if in the newspaper or in your local cable station that you can't have a PSA in there. Both of those organizations, newspapers and cable will allow you to have that, because they have that public service announcement quota that they have to fulfill every year. And again, ladies and gentlemen, it does not hurt to ask. The worst thing that, they say no, then you say, okay, great, I won't buy your paper anymore.
I feel a little concerned about that, using the
Mhm.
paper or the cable station, because I know they're on their way out. But having I guess it was you or, no, it was Christian was talking about how there's older people that you've got to reach. And, or maybe it was you. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The whole idea is that, you know, we've got to reach people of all ages. And I
Yes.
would think that the paper and the local, well, definitely the paper would be the way to go. But I just, you know, being in a journalism background, I know they're
Mhm.
on their way out. They're not going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
You know,
Now-
our newspaper has a magazine they put in once a month, I think it
Mhm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. It's called Health
Mhm.
Connections. And we have an ad in there, and it's a free ad.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and then whenever
Yeah.
we have,
Doctor's office.
Yeah.
whenever we have fundraisers, we use the newspaper.
Definitely.
And we label it as a DBSA project for mental health to support mental health in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a lot of people coming by and asking questions, and we have brochures and we have our little business cards for everybody.
Yep.
And we have raffles for some really nice stuff, homemade quilts and things like that. So,
Now, and if there's a community event, try to get a table where you can
yes, yeah, we do
sit.
that.
Yep, that's another one. Make sure that you tell your story. Tell your story, you know, intimately to people when you feel comfortable. I mean, don't give them your home address or anything, but tell them why you belong and what you get out of it. Ask the peers who attend to ask them to try to help you expand your reach. And if they know someone or a family member. If your chapter has a website and has your support group on their website, or we have you separately linked, try to get the link to your support group on medical facilities links. You know how certain doctors' offices have websites? See if you can get your link on there. There's finally, we're going to talk about at grocery stores, make a flyer and make a tear off piece where you can have your phone number there to contact for a support group meeting. Also leave information at local police and fire departments. Contact local universities, colleges, and park districts. Bottom line, trying to recruit and market groups is not a passive action. It's gonna take you to get up and go. Remember, like my story about how I had to go into work early just so that I could start going and picking up my daughters from school. You know, I never told you, I invited 20 people to that birthday party. You know how many showed up?
I'm going to guess more than 20 people.
15.
That's not bad.
My daughter and the girls who attended had a blast. But you know what?
And they spread the word.
Yes, and they started to establish the reputation. And so the next year when I had them go to a beauty school for updos and nails and go to a restaurant afterwards, we had a bigger crowd. But you know what? I want to fast forward to just recently. I was talking to my daughter about this, how it used to keep me up at night before her meetings. And, you know, once I got the invites out and how many kids are going to show up and everything. And she said to me, you know, Mom, I had a great time at all my birthday parties. I never noticed the people who weren't there.
Mhm.
Lesson is, no matter how many people show up to your support group meetings, it's not how many, it's how well it went. It's the messages that were shared and the friendships that were struck and the ideas that were shared. Anyone have some questions for me?
Jill,
Mhm.
I have a question.
Okay.
This is more of an action that I have going through my mind last month, the
Mhm.
last month.
Yes.
We, our resource center it was in the hospital, so they couldn't get in. So the other day I asked, we were at the resource center and everything's back up. I asked for a list of the people that donated to our cause. And I got a 3-page eensy weensy writing type of thing. And I was telling my president, okay, you have this. Why can't we just send a letter to each of these people, give them a list of our, we're like, hey, we're back, type of thing. Would you think that would be great, or would that be a possibility?
You have to be careful with the confidentiality,
Mhm.
and that you have the permission to use their personal information.
Okay.
Okay, and I would also, whenever officers are setting up websites or sending out information, I always recommend that you all use a little anonymity and use, like, for example, a Google email address to be contacted at, and not necessarily your personal email address.
Mhm.
You can also have a Google phone number, so that the Google people contact the Google phone number, and they leave a message, and you have to pick up the messages from that Google phone number, so you're not getting calls in the middle of the night. Because please remember, we are not a 24/7 crisis line. We never expect you guys as facilitators to be on call 24/7. That is not your role. And so you have to be careful that way. Sometimes once you start meeting, again, you're and I don't want to launch into it too much, because Carla is covering it on the in-person versus virtual session, which is on Friday again. She
Yeah.
just had it today. She'll talk to you about liability and the things to ask for, and like the facility checks about, air, space between, if someone does get contracts COVID, and contact tracing. We're not going to get into that here. So
Okay.
mainly I wanted to give you guys some more marketing ideas. Any new ideas that came up for you guys? No, everything's new.
Yeah.
Old?
Yeah.
Also,
Well, I hadn't heard of half of these social media outlets. That was
Mhm.
new for me. WhatsApp, I hadn't heard of half of them.
yeah, definitely. And also, please keep in mind that we are transitioning
Oh,
back to the
oh,
office. And so we're going to slowly be starting to get brochures out again. Chapters have a limit of 600 brochures per year. But last year, we didn't send out many brochures at all. Brochures are a great way to do outreach. But again, don't just put out brochures. Put out brochures with information, a contact person's name, a meeting schedule, a website, whatever the case may be. Put, brochure in hand that has your guys' information on it.
You guys, as in the chapter meeting information,
Yep,
or you
exactly.
as a personal contact as well?
No, well, you could
Okay,
do
just
that,
the-
but I mean, if your meetings are open, once you start meeting in person, if it's Zoom, contact so-and-so to get the Zoom link for meetings, whatever the case may be. Or if
Okay.
you need to start using, like, making yourself some DBSA business cards, whatever, we have some, they're a little dusty, but you can still use them and handwrite your name on them as you're handing them to receptionists at doctor's office. Don't limit yourself to your own physician. Try to, go to hospitals and, treatment centers, wherever you can. And that's how you're going to build your support group up too.
Okay.
Well, we ran over a little bit, so I don't want to keep you any later, because I'm sure if you guys were working all day today, or even had these last few sessions, probably a little fatigued from Zoom right now. And you all know where to find me.
Yeah.
I'll have to say one thing, the medical sites,
Mhm.
linking our website with the doctors and
Mhm.
other areas has been, that was a good idea. We haven't checked into that one yet.
Yes, because you know what? I still get calls, and then I really will let you guys go, because we're supposed to be off by now. But I get contacted by psychologists and therapists offices about, oh, I didn't know that there were support groups anywhere. We do not want, and so keep knocking on those doors, keep introducing yourselves, and again, if you have some official literature, that helps grease the wheels. And again, remember, Rice Krispie treats, pre-packaged, and one, you can pick up a box and, ask your chapter to pay for it. And, it's part of marketing, because again, everyone likes a little sweet treat. And, those receptionists that work at those desks, they're not always getting nice people in front of them. So if you're sweet to them, they'd probably be willing to help you guys out, with that information. But again, make sure, always have something in there to point them back to your group.
Okay.
Okay. And again, if you have more questions or you need help, or again, like I said, we're going to get back to our offices eventually, but we're transitioning back on Mondays and Wednesdays. And so I can send out brochures then if your chapter doesn't have them already. But like I said, the DBSA support group brochures, make sure they order those because that's what you're trying to promote.
That's it.
All right. Thank you, guys. I know you got too late. It was fun working with you. And Nick, thank you for being my Zoom jockey. I hope everyone got to learn something. And with that being said, go have dinner or brunch or whatever you're going to be doing. And I will see you soon.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Have a great night. Enjoy the summit.